Welcome back to my humble podcast called In Good Company, sharing the blessings and of friendships, fellowships, and relationships. I just love having conversations with people and finding out what makes them tick, where they come from, and they always have something to share, something to learn from, something to take away. So without further ado, Mr. Trace Mayer, who's a neighbor, I call a friend, but we just communicated with each other. We really don't know a lot about each other. We know of each other, and I think respect each other. At least I respect you. So tell the world who you are.
Yeah, well, I mean, we certainly know enough of each other to like each other. I think at this point, and it's funny because I also feel like dynamics with men are very different from those that I hear about with my wife and just women in general. Right.
If you ask a bunch of women to sit around and do what we did for 5 years in a discussion group, it would be a totally different takeaway.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's in a funny way. I grew up swimming, so very isolationist, sensory deprivation tank, if nothing else. To then I picked up soccer after college, and I was so amazed with the team sport, nature of it, and played down at Mockingbird Valley for maybe 20 years.
Right.
And
never played before. No.
Oh, and it's there are people that I didn't even know their name,
right?
But I saw how they problem solved. I saw how they dealt with conflict. I saw all of these things about them that I really was able to dial in and make judgments that I think are probably as true as anything. And maybe that's why it's the old adage where people try to play golf together before they offer them a job or whatever the case might be. Yeah. So sorry, you asked me a question.
No, tell us who you are.
My name is Trace Mayer, and so what most people don't realize is Trace is a nickname. I'm actually John the Third.
John the Third.
So yes, Trace. John. I am John Mayer, and
I didn't know that.
That does impact every time I check into a hotel. Yeah. Yes.
So do you think John Mayer's not going to use John Mayer as his name checking into a hotel?
Hope not. Yeah.
Love it. Born and raised Louisville, Kentucky?
Dad was in the JAG Corps, so born in Quantico, but yes, raised, Dad's family's 3-4 generations here in Louisville.
Awesome.
And
so your father's a Marine.
No, he Navy. Is. He was.
You can't say was. Is.
He is. Yeah. There you are. Yeah, he is a Marine.
Okay. So is my father.
There you go. Yeah. Mom's family is of Cuban descent, or at least 4 generations, and Basque, Spanish before that. So
awesome.
I kind of think that's where I get my irreverent, mountain goat nature. But yeah.
So how did they meet?
Stetson College,
okay.
DeLand, Florida. Basically, in the library, my mom had written a note to a guy that she thought was cute, and threw it across the way to the table across from her, and it missed the guy that she was shooting for, and it hit my dad.
Are you serious? That is awesome.
God's honest. Yeah.
So my mother and father he was he's in maintenance for the school board, and they would always go to, I feel like it's called the Downs Hotel or a restaurant. She was a waitress, and my dad, I love him to death, but he is not, his personality is opposite of mine. He's not an outgoing guy. So he would just go there and hope to sit at her table. And then one day,
I think we've all been guilty of that at some point.
He caught a fly, threw it on the table, stuck a toothpick in it, and said, "Look, I speared a fly for you." And somehow that won my mom over. It started with him throwing toothpicks at a fly, and she's like, "Hey, you're not going to do that." So,
it's like Miyagi and the chopsticks,
right?
Yeah.
So I was almost going to interrupt you and joke that it hit your dad instead of the guy she was throwing it at, but that was actually happened. So Quantico.
Louisville. Yeah, I mean, he just came home to Louisville. So I for all intents and purposes.
Did you serve?
Did I? No, I did not.
Was that ever on the radar?
It wasn't. Yeah, no, that wasn't. I guess I must have started competing for swimming when I was 5.
Okay.
And that was my entire focus through high school. And once I got into college, that was just, like most people, it's get me out of Louisville before inevitably
Where'd you go to college?
Georgetown in D.C.
Oh, I love Georgetown. Yep.
Yeah.
My aunt's from Falls Church.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So that was my first. My aunt was probably the one person that opened my mind up to being outside of Louisville. Like everybody else
Yeah.
was like Louisville. And my aunt was like, I'm in DC. You can come and hang out with me. So that's one of my unique abilities is I can actually navigate around Georgetown and the circles and the roundabouts and all that stuff.
Which is intentionally confusing, but it's also refreshing too, because in a way, DC is like Louisville in that it's this river town, same weather, same attitude,
Yep.
Ish mode of dress, mode of speech, but then all of a sudden you hear 17 different languages,
Right.
and then it's a very different Oz that
Right.
you've just jumped into.
Well, and Louisville's kind of moving in that direction. I've heard. I mean, I've been to Costco lately, and the number I'll go there and hear 5 different languages.
Yes, yeah.
And that's not something 5 years ago I would have maybe even paid attention to, but definitely didn't realize.
Well, and if our culinary scene is any indication, then yeah, absolutely, it's certainly
Right.
picking up on it, and it does feel a lot like Washington from that time. Though
Yeah.
it seems like so much. Now it's a city of 7 million, 10 million people, whatever.
Is it really?
Well,
Good.
within the
You're talking about, they actually have a new name for it. It's like the DMV. District of Maryland, District Maryland, Virginia. They
Oh,
call it
that's so funny. Well-
DMV or DVM or something like that.
yeah, I had my issues with the DMV and DC too,
Right.
but that was under Marion Barry's reign, and that was an introduction to.
You weren't the one that gave him the cocaine, were you?
I did not set him up.
No. All right, good.
One of my favorite quotes, but I know we can't. Well, I don't know if we're censored.
Right.
Yes.
He can edit
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Michael's pretty good. All
Yes.
right.
Yeah, that could be a jump cut to
Right. Something
Marion
else.
and the.
What do you do professionally?
Oh, professionally now I'm an artist.
Okay.
I guess I kind of.
You're not starving.
I'm not. I'm not starving. And it's hard for me to say that because there's just such a level of douchebaggery to that term at all. And I've over the years qualified it with decorative artist or other elements. But yeah, at this point I am creating and selling
Art.
creative projects. So
Like this?
like that, absolutely.
So this is actually the reason I asked you to bring this is because you're a topic of conversation almost every time someone sits in my my study, because this book sits out and they ask me about it, and I honestly don't know much about it.
Well,
Tell us about Museum Bees.
that's funny too.
This
'cause
is
you've
your
been
thing,
in the
right?
studio. Yeah. So this is year 12-ish of creating these, which my original compulsion, maybe. I don't know. I'm naturally math science oriented,
Right.
And I do tend to look at the world within those formulas in a way. Was even a physics major,
Right.
for first couple of years before switching over.
Yeah.
And just found myself in the art studio in undergrad. And I went from undergrad, I went to New York and have a master's in fine and decorative arts, and then work for Sotheby's Auction House.
Okay.
And their contemporary painting, antique American furniture, and fine English furniture departments. And from there, came back to Louisville, and I worked professionally as dealing art and antiques for. I started with Sotheby's 93, 94, here with Bittner's 95, kind of on my own, 6, 7, 8-ish, somewhere in there. And through the course of, I was always loved the creative side myself, but there was an element of almost cutting your teeth through studying others, and in a way that I guess guitarists learn how to try to play like Jimi Hendrix or Eric Clapton or whatever the case is, Muddy Waters in the beginning. And that was a lot of studying and living in museums and auction houses and the rest. And through the course of dealing in art, I always had that creative side that was, just, that itch inside that you couldn't quite scratch. And there was sort of an aha moment where framing pieces for an exhibit one time,
Yep.
the frame was better than the painting, and just expanded on that and went with it. And it became a great medium with which to work, and one which, no one else had, but, also brought in elements of recycling, elements of, economics of the business, a lot of different aspects that had been, frustrating me, but also, was looking for a vehicle to be able to express. And in certain ways, I remember reading years ago about one of Dr. Seuss's early, what do you call it, directions from his publisher. And they said, we need a children's book. You can only, and you'll have to fact check me on this, but it was 8 or 10 words, something like that. And I don't know if it was Hop on Pop or one of those.
Right.
And he ends up writing this incredible, book, but through the limits, through those constraints.
Right.
And what I've found with working with these antique frames was that kind of those parameters and those restraints, and it's given such a freedom with which to be able to expand and work. And
So you're actually saying by limiting yourself, you've actually given yourself more space.
Absolutely. No, and it's created. A blank canvas is a tough thing.
Right.
When your teacher says, write me, a 400-page whatever,
right.
It's rough. But, when I'm starting with a frame that's a couple hundred years old and a craftsman had already, done his part to it, then it's a conversation. Then we're not starting from scratch. We're starting, like all of us, none of us exist in a vacuum. We've all, even
have
from the language we're speaking, this is just a continuum. And it's been a great way to be able to continue that, and also not only dive into yourself and how meaning is created, but then I don't know, just the process of being able to make fun of yourself too.
You create 3-dimensional art using recycled art frames.
Effectively, I mean, that's where, and that's exactly where it started. And then the objects that we're putting within those to embellish and create a story, those as well had some historic significance, or at least that kind of interpretation too. So a lot of material culture found objects.
Now, is your work traded like in houses, or is it just something you do and tinker at your?
It's not like Bitcoin, if that's what you're asking.
What's that?
It's not like Bitcoin.
No.
So I have other stores that sell for me.
Okay.
And that's been an interesting thing, because as a living creator versus somebody that's passed,
right?
There are very different markets that spring up for that. I intentionally make every single piece I create the same price. And one of the reasons for that was
Can I ask you the price?
It's $65. Yeah.
Okay.
So I wanted something that was accessible, somewhat, democratic within the, especially within the art world, where it's hard to touch anything original, for less than a lot.
Less than a lot. Yeah.
But beyond that, there's also this dynamic wherein within my level of the industry, there's so many designers and dealers that were trying to tell you what you needed to like.
Right.
And that was often designated by price. And by at least removing the difference, it kind of changed it to, this is, what you like best is the right answer.
Right.
It's not what I'm going to tell you.
Yeah.
And that in itself has been very, how can we say,
decent decoupling?
Decoupling, yeah, maybe from part of that dynamic. Yeah. There's
that's an interesting.
there's a behavioral dynamic, economic dynamic there that's it's switching the tables.
Yeah. But I so I always, when I think of people in my life, like, these are athletes, or these are business people, or these are art people. You, Alan, y'all kind of sit in that art seat in my head.
Sure.
And I'm always intimidated by it. I love art. I love looking at stuff. I love holding things, but I'm always intimidated. Because I don't know the difference. You could tell me that that's a $10,000 painting or a $25 painting, and I can't tell the difference. And it's not that I don't want to; I just don't know how to.
Well, and I think that's part of what I'm trying to accomplish is de-emphasizing my importance and empowering yours to say you like what you like.
Yeah.
It's not there's too many people out there telling you what you should like. And, I do these mental exercises in my head of, you go into a car lot and everything is the same price. What do you pick?
Right.
Are you still getting the Lamborghini, or are you going to do something else?
You're going to buy a Kia.
Haul the kids around it. I mean, it's at a certain level, you want what you want, and your taste will change. And they're just different things. And there are things that can resonate for me that culturally won't for others.
Right.
And there's no right or wrong with it. It's just what you like. And at the end of the day, I think we lose. We lose a lot of perspective with it, partially because it becomes commodified, and that's part of what broke my heart. Is I got into the art business because I was just overwhelmed with its beauty, overwhelmed with sort of that sacred, peaceful spot when I walk into a museum, and it's just inspiration. You never know what's gonna when lightning is striking,
right?
And so much of that was just kind of crushed with the fact of it's not it's not a painting that you like, it's a signature at the bottom,
right.
and that's where we really try to flip those tables. That's all.
So what is
it's a really inelegant way of saying that.
No, but it kind of demystifies the idea of, for somebody like me that loves art, but that really has no lack of better words, no frame to look at it through. It frames it a little bit better. So now I'm perfectly fine going to TJ Maxx and picking up something and putting it on the wall.
And it's funny too, because I was reading an article about Walmart kind of came out with an Hermes Birkin bag this past season, and it went crazy. And Hermes has had this whole strategy of restricting their bags, and they're tens of thousands of dollars, and now that one's $79.
Right.
And so that's a whole different thing. But it's not so different because it's a matter of luxury and perception.
Right.
And part of what I wanted to get into is something that everybody can participate with too.
Yeah. So why museum bees? What does that mean?
So the first ornament we used was a bee, and so then we were just calling them bees, and the name kind of stuck. Okay. And then added museum just to connote that there was an old antique element to it. But honestly, I'm still looking for a better name. Suggestions are welcome.
Well, the funny thing is, this podcast, we did about 15 episodes before we finally came up with the name of it. So
right, there you are.
You just got to keep putting it out there.
Hey, it's just another diary entry.
Right. What does I find it interesting that you have a engineer brain and an art brain in the same head.
Yeah.
a lot of times those two things are in conflict.
That's so. Yes, very much. I went to a country day school here in town, which it was very difficult for me because it's a lot of super linear thinking in general, and it was probably good because I wasn't around a lot of what I would consider a traditionally creative type of schooling and environment. But one thing that was great was that they were able to take us on more of an advanced course, and I think 4 or 5 of us in senior year were doing quantum mechanics,
right.
And at that point, it's not just the math; it's more of those concepts behind, and that's where I feel like it's art.
Yeah.
It's not math. That's sort of getting into much more conceptual things that are somewhat of a hallmark of 20th and 21st century art.
Right.
People will laugh about the banana with the on the wall with the duct tape that's sold for whichever, but in a way, it's not so different from the algorithms that we're all kind of governed by at this point.
Yeah, I was going to say imprisoned by, but governed sounds better.
Yeah.
So KCD.
KCD, yeah, KCD for most of it. I went to Ballard 1 year. So go Bruins.
Did you start or end at KCD?
So I'd started 4th grade at KCD. Junior year, I went to Ballard and then finished up back at KCD.
Why'd y'all move?
Much like what we hear from our kids in the Anchors experience is after a while, they're just so sick of each other.
Right.
It's just, you needed a break, and I just needed a break at that point.
My oldest is more than likely going to KCD, which is also funny because she told us like a week ago, I'm only going here because this is where you want me to go. And I'm like, well, we went to 5 different schools. You've selected this, and school's not a positive thing in her mind anyway. So, but then she's like, I think I want to go to Ballard, but it's because that's where one of her friends goes. Anyways, KCD now has they have a lot more design stuff. They've they've kind of grown their art part. Art.
I think it might have started with the theater program because they had this
huge
incredible
theater
investment in this stage.
Yep.
And I think they're doing a great job in general. I think it's tough running a school these days because there are too many people that you're answering to. I think getting parents out of the way is probably the most important thing. And
when did that change?
When did that change? I don't know. Well, for Anchorage, I taught art discovery for 7 years.
Right.
And as much as I loved engaging with the kids, and when I was talking, presenting Jackson Pollock, it was in the concept of fractal geometry. Rene Magritte was Jung and Freud. Concepts that they didn't know, and I loved it. And I got in there, and it was fantastic. But having a parent in the classroom is not a great thing. It's just it's threatening. I think or it can be potentially threatening to the children. Not the children, the teachers, because it's sort of it's power dynamics.
Right.
And, when did it happen? I don't know. Maybe on the sports fields. I think that's once the NIL money started coming in.
When are they going to get NIL money for kids to go to different schools?
Right.
Can KCD please, if you're watching this, can somebody sponsor my daughter's horseback riding?
There you go.
You have kids?
I do, yeah. So my niece moved in with us when she was 4.
Okay.
And Astrid, who's my niece is 25 and Astrid's 21 right now.
Okay.
So two girls in the house.
You have adults. You're doing the adult thing.
Yes, yeah, different stage. Yeah.
You've just recently, it's been about a year, maybe 2, finished your art studio.
Yes.
on the pond on your property.
Right.
Talk us through that, because that's a beautiful space.
So Anchorage is amazing. It's a funky place. It's almost a healthy amount of irreverence. I think there's a lot of entrepreneurs that live there.
Right.
It has this funny history. And when my wife grew up there were maybe 250 houses, and now we're 800 or so.
Right.
So it's a very different dynamic that I think is super healthy, because it was so stuck in its ways. And so anyway, I had this great shop in St. Matthews, and during COVID, my lease had come up.
Right.
And maybe a month into COVID, my the landlord, who's a buddy, said, "Hey, lease is coming up. We need to renew for another, a million years, and we're gonna have to raise the rent."
Yeah,
and
about $10 million.
You just saved my decision for me.
Right.
Which is great, except I think that I'm still processing through the problem that many have when you work from home, because even though it's not home, it's still a couple hundred yards away.
Right.
It's where is that balance?
Right.
And for somebody like me who's just kind of compulsive, and I'm always working through this, it's tough, because I'll get to the point where I'm done looking at Netflix and it's 10 o'clock at night. I think I'll head on over. I'll hang out for a couple hours. We'll get some peace and quiet. And so far, I'm not burned out, but that's one that I worry about.
I struggle working from home because I don't have another space to go to.
Right.
A lot of times we'll grab our laptop and sit down at the kitchen table, and then the next thing you know, I'm like, and then the kids come home, and then life and business run together, and it between being distracted and not being intentional with the kids to not finishing or being, I love your space. I think that's a healthy separation. At least you have to walk outside to get there.
Yeah, it is, and it does feel like a sanctuary too.
Yeah.
And that's one where I have so many women in the house that it's nice to have it's good for everybody to have their own space, and for that it's a little sacred for me too, because it is about creativity and bouncing ideas and really trying to create something that didn't exist before, and push the boundaries.
Well, and it's become a de facto, is that the right word? A default gathering place for a men's group where we met each other.
Yes.
Well, we call it a men's discussion group. It never really had a name, but I will tell you that was probably, if you take 10 impactful things in my life that I've had an opportunity to witness or be a part of. That has, because I was by far the youngest person in the group, I think, and probably not exposed to the amount of intellect and experiences that were collectively in that room at any given time.
Some days you're just holding on for dear life, trying to keep up with it. But yeah, it's interesting. I think more people should do it, because I think there are very few vehicles for guys to sit together and talk about things that they normally wouldn't. And that's it's nice.
And I stepped out of it just because. Not because I wanted to, but I had to say, okay, here's the things that are non-negotiable in my life. And my kids were playing sports, and I was starting to miss. And I was like, that's not fair to the seat. And I tried to do something similar with people more kind of in my world. That's an extension of my world, I would say. Yeah. It doesn't stay together. So for that group to be going, 16 years or something?
It's quite a few. Yeah, it's amazing. And what hooked me was the first month when the prompt, because there have been different formats, was do we matter?
Right.
That was it. Just those 3 words. And some people brought it on a very personal basis. Other went to cosmic and millions of years type of basis. Yeah. And it was great how everybody brought their own thing. But I would say that what you're doing here is in a way an extension of that.
I think so.
And it's
I see that now unintentionally, but yes.
It's one of our last meetings. Garrison brought in.
How's he doing?
He's I think recovering well. He's one of when they talk about the 1% of people that might have complications from surgery, he was.
Right.
So, for our viewers, but what he brought in were questions, much like this, where it was, what is, what's your favorite food? What, all these almost Bernard Pivot type of questions. Do you know that?
No.
So there was this Inside the Actors Studio with James Lipton was a show that was on forever. It might still be. And at the end, there was a guy named Bernard Pivot that would have these questions that he would ask, and there were. What's your favorite sound? Your least favorite sound? What do you want to hear God say to you when you enter the pearly gates? Or things of that nature. And they were those kind of questions that people rarely ask each other. Yeah. And it was he started getting into those, and that was again people that we've known for 15 years that I had no idea.
Right.
And it kind of baffles.
It still does.
So I like the space. I like what you're doing. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. What else in your world?
What's in my world? My dog Potter, you might have heard walking around in the background here. It's a funny thing. I feel like I lead a very boring world at this point. I've got business which has been almost. I won't say all consuming, but I'm probably creating 5-6 hours a day at this point. And that's such a blessing because
now are you fielding orders, or are you just creating?
So at this point we're, Museum Bees is in about 150 stores around the country. So that, it's a job for, every week to be able to, my goal is to create 275 unique designs every week.
Oh. And that's an interesting metric.
It is. It just kind of came to that, through what we're able to produce and able to. And
now, is your business just you? Or,
no. I have a great team behind me, of which I take all the credit.
Fair enough.
Like so most of it. There's probably 6 of us that are. So Nick England is cutting frames, and he's off-site.
Okay.
Jane Kotkamp is doing photography and data entry and shipping, fulfillment, and she's doing an amazing.
Is she on-site or off-site?
Mostly off-site, but she's on as well. She'll pop in and out. Garrett Stansbury is the sort of main guy that's sort of trying to keep everything together and does a lot of the designing and creating with me as well.
Okay.
And then we have a bevy of neighborhood kids that will come in for internships and after school and things of that nature. And there's Jacqueline Darst comes in for what'll happen is some restoration. These frames will come in and they're cut and they need a lot of work. So she'll take those and work offsite as well.
Where do you source them from?
Everywhere. So it used to be me doing the sourcing, and then it's turned into a lot of pickers that will actually come to me and other stores. But it's almost a build it and they will come. It started. All of a sudden, people said, "I have a frame," and then
I have a frame.
And then there's a couple of dealers that just said, "Well, I can supply you with these." And the same happened with. I work with a lot of costume jewelry too, and 1950s, 1960s, and then there's that group of people that said, "Well, I have some." So they started coming in, and it was a funny dynamic. A woman in West Virginia creates marbled papers, Florentine papers, and she found me online, and we started to work together. And a woman in England is painting these oyster shells, and so it's just these. It's an odd
mix,
island of misfit that we've all come together.
All right, I want to dive into the business a little bit more because I probably don't. Again, the IQ between you and I is a big gap. But taking art, I'm thinking, oh, Trace does art. That's cool, But you run a business. And
you try. I mean, that's the.
Are you?
I just saw the Dylan movie, and when he said, assuming it's accurate, I want to be a musician that eats.
Oh, did you watch that?
Oh, it was amazing. Yeah, I thought it was incredible.
I want to watch.
I'm a huge fan to begin with, and there's a certain level of cultural resonance and dominoes that have fallen for.
What is his probably? And I could be thinking wrong. What is his song that talks about the day the music died? Is that Dylan?
No. That's it's not. Don McLean.
Don McLean.
Yeah, American Pie.
Okay. I'm confusing the two. All right. But Dylan, he talks about Dylan in that song, right?
Oh, sure. I think it was a massive cultural impact.
Yeah.
If nothing else, elevating the art form to Nobel Prize,
right?
If nothing else, and it's funny how it really took somebody with not as pretty of a voice,
right?
To be able to do that, because at a certain point, beauty's it can be a distraction,
right?
Yeah.
Well, and it's almost like I had a previous guest, and I told him he was a gap. He's outgoing enough to have a personality that translates, but he's not so popular that he's a celebrity. So I think someone like that can relate more to everyday people, right? You listen to Dylan and his raspy, nasty voice, and it's like, oh, that sounds like my grandma, or I understand that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot, I think everybody's a fan at a certain point.
Yeah.
I mean, the person that says they did it on their own, they're operating in a vacuum once again. Right. It doesn't exist, or they're just being jerks.
Right.
This is we're all working with the gifts that have been given us, whether knowingly or not.
Yeah.
And Dylan is a fan of Woody Guthrie's, and I guess part of what is magical is that we don't know the impacts that we have in this world all the time, and hopefully they're good. Obviously that's that would be the greatest idea. But and if we can inspire others, I mean that's one of the gifts that's that's
should be shared.
Magic.
Yeah, absolutely. So back to the business.
Yeah.
Do you have an org chart?
Sorry?
Do you have an organizational chart?
if spaghetti counts. Okay. I mean, I do in a sense. I guess how would you define?
What are you the CEO or the CCO, the Chief Creative Officer?
I guess ultimately, so structurally, okay, I see what you're saying. There was a point where structurally I looked at the business as a bakery, or a restaurant of sorts, but also as a band.
Okay.
And when you get a great team together, there's it flows,
right?
And it's always work. It's certainly the communication side of it. I watched Peter Jackson's documentary on the Beatles. Did you ever see that?
I did not.
So it's great because it's sort of a slog in a way, and that you'll watch them do the same song over and over and over and over, and then all of a sudden Billy Preston steps in because they were stuck, and he hits the keyboards, and Abbey Road is born.
Right.
And you see these flashes of magic. And I don't think most people appreciate sitting down and doing the work. And sometimes it just doesn't happen, and other times, lightning strikes.
Right.
There was a point where by accident I had two employees, one after the other, that were both bassists in bands.
Okay.
And I realized that's the personality, type that works so well within this environment, because they didn't have LSD, the lead singer disorder. They didn't have the guitarist.
I was like, all right, we're talking about drugs. Like,
exactly. They weren't the lead guitarist. They weren't Slash. They weren't Keith Moon on drums, blowing up. They kept it together.
Right.
They were creative problem solvers. They worked with others. They understood, infrequent cash flows. They understood the showmanship side of it. And there's so much of that was, I really greatly appreciated. And so even though I'm not specifically looking for bassists,
right. That DNA.
I love that DNA. And I like that idea of sure, I'm ultimately, leading, but it's a matter of letting that go and letting other people, present and do what they can and stay open. I was just reading about John Coltrane and Miles Davis in the late 50s, early 60s when they were together. And Miles Davis at this point had kind of reinvented jazz 4 times. And there was this conflict going on with him and Coltrane because Davis had kind of gone into this cul-de-sac. After 4 times, he was like, that was it. And Coltrane was just exploding into this whole different thing. And Miles Davis was stuck. He couldn't get out of it. And I don't want to be that guy that's stuck. Right. I want to be able to listen to the Coltranes of the world and say, come on, let's do something else.
Right.
And as much as I think there's a freedom within working within the parameters that we've set up, also have to recognize, be flexible, be open to some of this, because ultimately what I'm dealing in a lot of is a material culture, and that's just a reflection that's constantly changing, and it's weird and it's fun and it's inspiring and it's everything that frustrating that people are, but or all that we are, but ultimately it's we're as inane as we are, we're kind of fascinating too.
It almost, I have found that it's almost when people get, when you get kind of back to where we started, right? When we said that you reduced you went to the frames, right?
Yeah.
And it's because you restricted yourself to that medium and that idea.
Sure.
Then everything else opened up. Same way with business. Like when you get hyper focused on what you're going to do, it allows you to be opened up. And it's almost counterintuitive, right? It's like having a calendar and mapping out your day seems restrictive, but it actually frees you up to do the things you want to do.
And I think you see that expressed in different ways, throughout the business worlds. Whether it's Steve Jobs wearing a uniform, basically the same thing, or if you simplify enough out of your life, then you really can focus on on other things. And I think it's good and bad, because it does get this incredible myopia where the danger is you are only doing that, and,
right? And
you see these. Super highly focused,
robots.
I mean, you look at Silicon Valley, and when some of those characters have, some will say they're on the spectrum, others will say they're sociopaths. But either way, there is a formula for success in being able to do that.
Right.
But there's the obvious dangers.
Yeah. All right. I like to talk about peace, profit, and purpose. So what?
Peace, profit, purpose. Oh, yes.
So what brings you peace? What brings you profit? And what brings you purpose?
Peace. Peace. Yeah, I do feel tormented. Or driven, maybe. Peace.
And by peace, I'm saying
peace is peace is a sort of constantly evolving thing, and it kind of driven with inspiration, but ultimately I think I'm recognizing the multitude of fears that I operate in, and sort of fighting those fears is a constant, whether it's health or family or providing, or the noise that sort of distracts you from being centered, and my Achilles heel is impatience, I think, or maybe I don't know, maybe that's part of the driving engine too. I listened to a TED Talk years ago where the guy talked about motivating employees and what it took, and he kind of came up with this formula of autonomy. They had to be autonomous to be able to do their job on their own without micromanagers. Mastery. They had to become so good at it that they master that. But that wasn't enough.
Right.
If you gave them more money at that point, it wasn't going to get better performance. The only thing that took it to the next level was purpose. And so, as you say, purpose. Again, I don't know exactly what the purpose is, but I guess I'm still trying to find, I'm using a lot of music references here, but I'm trying to find the sound. I'm still searching for that magic.
Spjorg note. What movie was that? Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, what's that?
Oh, it's some goofy Will Ferrell movie, and he finally sings the perfect note.
Oh, yeah, of course. Step Brothers. Yeah. No, it's fantastic. I mean, there's that. And I feel like, there's a lot of those moments for me where I create something. It's like, that's amazing. I was so excited that, that exists. And then the hard part is letting it go.
Right.
Be like, all right, now I'm off to the next thing. It's it's done. And so there's an addictive quality to that too. Right. I don't know that is purpose.
Why were you put on this earth?
Why are we on this earth? Yeah.
Why were you put on this earth?
I wish I had an idea. I know that part of what I want to do is create a space that that does inspire, or that does create something positive that within the I think the culture that I grew up in, at least the expectations were lawyer, doctor, banker, and to know that there can be something else, that there's, you don't have to to do just that there are ways to live that find what you do, because if you're going to be happy, hopefully you're going to
inspire people around
inspire others and carry it on and just
I thought you were going to tell me a joke.
I don't know.
A banker, a lawyer, and a doctor walked into a bar.
Yeah, they met a Jesuit.
What about profit? And it doesn't have to be money. How do you win every day?
How do I win every day? Just by being able to do what I do. I think it's amazing to me that I get to wake up every day and create, and it's something that I do not take for granted at all. I'm incredibly appreciative that's it, and I also feel like that's it's not a burden, but it's a gift that I don't want to ever take for granted. And again, it's not something I created on my own. This is something that had the support of my parents. I had my wife. Every step along the way in my life, there's no way I could have done this without others. And there's an obligation, I feel, within that, to not waste the opportunities.
That's a heavy word. It's something I've been playing, like obligation. Like I'm responsible. And this, I wake up every day thinking I am responsible for creating the environment so all these other people can be successful.
Sure.
And it does feel like an obligation, and
it's magic too. It is. It's you go back to the Spider-Man, responsibility and opportunity and all that, but it's still. In a way, it's like, I don't want this to stop. This is I want this to keep going, because I love doing it. But it's also, not everybody gets to wake up and be excited about going to work. And I am, and I know that's super rare. I get that. I do get that.
Well, that's cool. I'm gonna go to the lightning round. You good?
Lightning, yeah, bring it.
All right. Favorite restaurant?
Oh, La Buvette in Omaha, Nebraska.
Okay,
no question.
I feel like you've been asked that before.
It's just my favorite. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's Love magic. And that's an art form right there.
How do you cook your steak?
Oh, medium rare, but I usually don't, because I'm a horrible chef.
Are you really?
Horrible. Karen is the best on that.
Favorite bourbon?
Bourbon. Oh, tough one. I'll give you 3 just because. I love the Double Oak. I love Knobs Creek. Oh, jeez. Of course I like bee sting, but that's the one that I haven't tasted yet. That'll be the 3rd.
What was your favorite Derby?
Favorite Derby? Ooh. Oh, that's a tough one. I've been to Derby a lot.
Yeah,
so, I mean, different ones I like for different reasons. You know, in high school, you're in the infield and you're a bunch of knuckleheads and you're having a great time.
The infield doesn't really even exist anymore, does it?
I don't think the way,
not that version.
In the same capacity.
Yeah.
Favorite Derby. There's, I don't know, they seem to, I can't do the years or put it together, but there was a time when we kind of figured out that instead of going to a restaurant, we just did takeout.
Yeah.
And that way it was, all right, we're in the car, we're leaving. It might be a half hour, it might be an hour and a half. But when we get there, it's like, okay, we're takeout, we're going to the park and we're doing whichever. But, yeah.
Favorite moment in which like Louisville was involved? Like the 2013 national championship game, like that for me is special.
Yeah. So I never
not necessarily Louisville the city or some representation of it.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many things to be proud of with Louisville. It's so okay. So I have to say, so my sister lives in New York City.
Okay.
And was up there a couple of years ago for her birthday, and she had maybe 50, 60 people, and there was a point when, growing up, people would say, "Where are you from?" Say Louisville, and they'd get this. Are you wearing shoes?
Right.
Kentucky Fried Chicken, Louisville Slugger. The old tropes.
Right.
And this was the first time where they said, "Oh, that's fantastic! I'm going there." And within this group, this small party, 4 separate groups of people did not know each other. Were all coming to Kentucky, and they were coming to do tours. They were experience restaurants and the rest. And it was at that point that I thought, oh, this is fantastic.
Right.
We're doing something right. This isn't just a Muhammad Ali moment or different celebrities or people that are known. This is as a collective,
we're coming
the
to
state
Louisville.
is doing something right. That's interesting on a national basis.
I had a Airbnb that was real close to the. It was right by Jephthah the Creed, but its location was so, and I didn't even realize it at the time. Its location in relationship to all the different bourbon tours. That thing stayed booked all the time. Like I couldn't even go. It had a pond. I used to like go out there and fish and stuff. I couldn't even go because every single. I mean, it's like 4 or 5 days. What are y'all doing? Oh, we're having a bachelorette party and doing the bourbon tours. Oh, I've got a corporate event. We're doing the bourbon tours. It was like nuts.
That's amazing.
What about peanut butter jelly?
Peanut butter, definitely. Jelly, of course. There's some honey and some bananas on there.
Crunchy or smooth?
Crunchy.
Okay.
Come on.
If you got
I'm not an animal.
If you got to have dinner tonight with 3 people, who would it be and why? Why?
You're killing me. You're killing me. What's horrible is I'm glad you asked this because I interviewed for my old university for years, and I would kind of throw that question out there just to see how they would answer, and I realized it's a really horrible thing, so I never did it anymore. The interesting, I know,
you
Potter
upset.
would be. I'd eat with all my favorite dogs. Some of the interesting ones were great grandparents. Or my father when he was my age, or my mother when he was my age. You got the Buddha, Jesus, Einsteins, Hendrix, whatever celebrities you could all the way. But in this world that's really driven with loss and with this immense gravity and feeling and the rest, it's any of those losses. But then it becomes magical because I'd love to, that idea of meeting those ancestors, my grandparents, whichever, at my age is one that I think would be.
I don't think I've ever heard anyone answer it that way.
It'd be amazing, but but again, I've had this in my head. Potter, Potter's invited to dinner, of course.
You can come in.
Say with Bessler and all the rest.
I've asked this a bunch, and everybody says, like you said, my mom, my grandmother, blah blah blah. But nobody ever put it in perspective of when they were my age, or right before they did something.
Well, and I think a lot of it is just understanding. I mean, there's the pleasure aspect of it. Oh, what celebrity, what which touching greatness of a certain sort. But I think there is that element of how do you go beyond that?
Oh, is it bad that like I don't think that my go-to is not like someone that has passed in my life, which is weird.
No, well, I mean, and again, that's where I'm living
Sherman.
in my head in the past. You know,
I'm trying to decide if I want to have Grant or Sherman. Which one of those two?
Yeah, I mean, take it the other side and be like, I'd like to have dinner with great grandkids that I'd never meet. Something of that nature. I used to say fictional or non too, and then you're really opening up the
Pandora's box.
Meet with Pandora.
Is it Pandora? What? Oh man, I just lost it.
Favorite curse word?
No. Favorite sports team?
Oh, Chelsea Football Club. Okay. Of course. Sorry. Not so. Oddly enough, well, at KCD there was as a swimmer, the football players would just kind of be their own thing, and they were enough. That we weren't interested in hanging out with them. So football became like to me, but it was just a conditional thing. I appreciate the sport for what it is, and Harry Wilson has been trying to teach me it in later days. So at Country Day, I swam lakeside. I swam through college, so that was my focus. But they needed people to fill out a team, so I played soccer for them, and I think it was our sophomore or senior year, the NASL, which was the 1980s professional United States Soccer League had collapsed.
Okay.
And so they had all of these players on visas that were in the country. And our U.S. history teacher was a guy named Jorge Aucklander, and he played for Argentina. It was Argentina or Uruguay. I think it was Uruguay.
Your American history teacher was...
Yes, and he had these crazy way of teaching. And so he had a friend that was the goalkeeper coach for the New York Cosmos.
Okay.
And so this guy, Miguel de Lima, came down to live in Louisville and coach KCD's soccer team. Now, it turns out Miguel de Lima was the goalie on Pele's last Brazilian World Cup winning team.
Oh my goodness, that's awesome.
He taught our team, so I didn't really know anything about it. And you had this massive presence, but I learned the game and I learned to love it.
Yep.
And you're stuck at that point. So
that's awesome.
It's just super random.
Random. Yeah, that's probably didn't see that one coming.
Yeah, I mean, the people that have come through Louisville, it's just it's crazy. Yeah. But so I don't know how I fell in with Chelsea, but it was with pre-Russian Revolution.
Yeah. So I'm a big Richmond Greyhounds fan.
Yes, I am. Thank you. There's I'd like to think that I'm Ted, but I'm probably more like Beard.
Right. I love it. Anything we missed?
Oh Lord!
There's a ton.
Yeah, I mean everything. But hopefully there's something.
Is there any shameless plugs we can do for museum?
Shameless. I mean the shameless. Yeah, no, I would not. I wouldn't want to sully the pure experience.
Where can I? What store? What store?
So in Louisville, we're at Scout and Colonial Designs.
Scout.
Yes, Brownsboro Road and Dover House as well on Lexington Road, and then just on our website you can see other participating retailers around the country.
Cool. There was you sell it for $65. Is that what the store sells it for, or is that what you sell it to the store?
No, that's the retail price.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so definitely.
Is that part of your their obligation?
They're not, and that's been a funny thing too, because Blackberry Farm sells them for a little more, as other stores will sell them for a little less. But because they're all unique, you can kind of do that. And I try not to police. I try to say, you'll find your medium. And I suggest that whatever you do, they just make it the same price, because there is this interesting,
the same price in their store.
In their store.
So if I walk in there and then I'm not going to be influenced by price.
Right. I mean, to me, that's the important thing. Is there's no right or wrong. Yep. It's just what you like, and what you like is important. And maybe that comes from raising girls too. Yeah. It's just be like, this is you make your own choices. Yeah. Don't let others tell you.
Don't let other people tell you what to do.
Yeah,
brother, I love it. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. I appreciate it. This has been a joy.